Welcome back to Smoked BBQ Source. I'm Ricer, and today we're going to be talking about breakfast sausage links. In the past couple days, I made up a couple different batches, and if you have a family like I do, they end up being a fabulous hit. Not only is it a lot of fun for me to do with the boys, it also saves me a ton of money. When my boys were little, we didn't waste any money on pacifiers. We just shoved a breakfast link in their mouth to keep them from crying. The first thing that I do when I plan on making any types of sausage is that I have to get those natural casings prepped. I take them out of the package and then rinse off all that salt really good and let them soak in some warm water for 1 hour. After that, rinse them off again and leave them in that container with some water and put them back in the fridge overnight. But here is a pro tip for you. Add a teaspoon of baking soda to that soak before you put it back into the fridge. This is gonna help those casings become very slippery, and it'll make it a lot easier to get them to slide on that horn. For breakfast links, I always use pork butt. It has the perfect fat to meat ratio, and typically it's priced pretty decent. You might just have to look around a little bit to find yourself a sale. It is not hard to trim out that bone on a pork butt. Just find it with your knife and then start cutting it out. There is no right or wrong way to do it, and you can clean it up as much as you want. But I will say it is pretty nice when I can find boneless for the same price as I can find bone-in, because it's a lot easier just to slice and cube it up, and it saves a little bit of prep time. When it comes to cutting it up, I cut it so it'll actually fit into my grinder the easiest. Sometimes I cut them up into strips, and other times I just cube them so they fit down that throat. Typically, whenever I decide that I'm gonna dirty up my grinder, I do at least a 25-pound batch. I do have this really nice meat scale that my lugs fit on, so when I'm trimming it up, I can get to that exact weight that I need for this batch. After the meat is all cut up and weighed out, I start to add my seasonings, and I actually mix it by hand. This way I can make sure that all of the meat is covered with some of that spice. For these two different types of batches, I used PS Seasonings Maple Sausage number 274 and their standard breakfast link recipe, which is probably their most popular. I used number 117. On the package it has a B after it, but I think on the website it's just number 117. I do make a homemade recipe sometimes, and we'll put a link in the description below where you can find it. But honestly, my friends and family like the flavors of these spice packs just as much as they do my very own recipe. And this just makes it a lot easier on the math. I don't have to figure out each individual weight for each individual spice for the total amount of weight of sausage that I want to make. The PS Seasoning spice packs make 25 pounds, so I just need to get 25 pounds of meat. So if you're a beginner, I do suggest that you start out with some type of spice kit or spice pack and then get some casings, because trying to figure out what type of ingredients you need for sausage can be a little tricky. There is some science behind it, but in time and a little bit of experience, I say you should start experimenting and making your very own recipe. And here is a great book for any of you thinking about getting into sausage making. It's called Home Production of Quality Meats and Sausages. There is a very valuable table inside this book that many professional sausage makers use so they do not add too much spice to that meat. You can add more love to your sausage. Nothing wrong with a little extra loving. After the meat and spices are all mixed up really good by hand, I place it back in the fridge to keep cold. Or if you're like me right now, I have a natural freezer outside up here in God's country. And with this outdoor freezer, the meat gets really cold. And trust me, there's nothing better than grinding almost frozen meat. It just performs better. The equipment that you use isn't gonna make your sausage taste much better, but it certainly is gonna make it 100% simpler to do. When I use my Lem number 22 dual grinder on fresh sausage, I just do one single pass. I either use a 3/16 inch or a 1/4 inch plate. But when I use my number 32 single pass, I end up sending that fresh sausage through twice. Whenever I do fresh sausage, it doesn't matter on what grinder I use. I hand mix everything for at least 5 minutes so I can get that protein extraction into high gear. You know you have a good mix when it sticks to the bottom of your hand. But here's a pro tip to help save your hands from that cold meat. I use cut-proof gloves when I'm trimming up meat so they can actually double as liners when I'm mixing up that meat. I have a 25 and a 50-pound mixer that I use on any cured sausage, but on fresh, I just mix it by hand. Pushing sausage through a 5/8 horn with a small stuffer can kind of be a chore, so I suggest you have at least one person around to help you out. You'll have to get a little practice at it, but it does help when one person is cranking at an even speed and the other one is just kind of helping it guide out. This is the #1 reason why a couple years back I bought a very nice electric stuffer. When I want to process meat, I don't want to hope and pray that one of the boys are going to be around to be able to help me. Because trust me, 21mm snack stick collagen casings or sheep casings are kind of a pain to be able to crank out. When I'm doing hog casings or bigger, I really don't mind cranking it out myself, but it is still kind of nice to have somebody around just to blabble with. Plus, you got a gopher. You can say, hey, go for this and go for that. When you are filling up your canister, pack it nice and tight. This way you can get all of that air out in between each of those handfuls of meat that you put in. That will help keep your sausage flowing out of that horn nice and consistent. When opening up sheep casings, it really doesn't help when you have sausage fingers. It's kind of intricate work and it's a little bit of but once you get it, put a little water through that casing and then slide it on the horn. It's gonna take a little bit of practice, but you'll get it. And you can see right here on video footage, by adding that teaspoon of baking soda, those casings slide on with ease. I mean, like really ease, like easy. If you got any casings left over, it's not a big deal. You can just put them back in the fridge and they'll stay okay for a couple weeks. But if it's gonna be any longer, you might wanna add a little bit of salt to them so they don't spoil. When I'm filling up natural sheep or hog casings, I really only fill them to about 3/4 full. This way it's a lot easier to pinch them off and spin them up nice and tight. Once I get all the sausage stuffed and coiled up, then I start making my links. I really don't pay that close attention to the size of the links that I'm making. I just start pinching and twirling because this way the boys and I can have a little bit of side competition of who gets the bigger links for breakfast. You know, I gotta stay kind of competitive against my teenage boys. I mean, like, I want to fight for the biggest sausage link. Championship bound. A couple of the greatest things about making your own breakfast links is #1, you made it, so you know what it's made out of. And #2, you saved money. Yeah, you saved money. I did some math to show you the cost savings that I got off from making 50 pounds compared to buying 50 pounds of breakfast links. A 12-ounce package of links at my grocery store is $4.89. So a pound is $6.52. 50 pounds of it, that would cost me $326. It's a lot of money, right, for 50 pounds. For the homemade links, well, we start with the pork butt. That was $1.98 a pound. I bought 50 pounds, so $99. The seasoning came in at $27.98, which multiplies out to 56 cents a pound. To be able to do 50 pounds of links, I had to buy 2 packs of sheep casings, which was $35.98 or 72 cents a pound. So coming up with my per pound on my homemade, it was $3.26, giving me a total of $163 for 50 pounds, or it saved me actually $163. So yeah, exactly half the amount to make my very own. Now, if you look at that $163 that I saved on that 50 pounds, that's about a quarter of the price of a very, very nice grinder. So it won't take you very long to start seeing some cost savings when you buy that grinder. There you go. Tell the wife, start saving money. I'm gonna process my own meat. But honestly, these sausage links taste better than the store-bought. I'll also add that with these PS Seasoning spice packs, you could probably get away with adding a little bit more meat. Have like a 27.5 1.5 pound batch because these breakfast links are bustin' with flavor. We'll have more information on pieces and parts in the description below so you can be successful at making your very own breakfast sausage links. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in the next video because it's sausage time. Bye-bye.